The night the story truly began didn't start with noise or chaos. It started with silence, the kind that lives in the corners of expensive hotels, where soft music plays only to remind you how out of place you are if you don't belong. The Crystal Crown Hotel stood tall and glowing in the rain, its golden doors opening and closing like a mouth that only spoke to the wealthy. Inside, laughter clinked with glasses, perfume mixed with polished marble, and no one noticed the woman standing just beyond the revolving door, holding her thin jacket closed with trembling hands. She had already decided this would be her last attempt. If this failed, she didn't know what she would tell her children. Her name was Amina, and she hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. Not because she didn't want to, but because every bite she could find went to her kids. Her youngest, Sammy, was 4 and cried himself to sleep asking why his stomach hurt. Her daughter, Noor, pretended she wasn't hungry at all, smiling too brightly like children do when they are trying to be brave. Amina had once promised them that as long as she was alive, they would never go to bed hungry. That promise echoed in her chest as she finally gathered the courage to step inside the hotel. The warmth hit her first. Then the stares. People dressed in suits and evening gowns glanced at her the way people glance at stains, quickly, uncomfortably, hoping someone else would deal with it. Amina lowered her eyes and walked toward the restaurant area, where the smell of fresh bread and roasted meat nearly made her knees buckle. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for favors. All she wanted was leftover food. Something untouched. Something she could take home. She approached the reception desk slowly, her voice barely louder than the soft piano music behind her. "Excuse me," she said, her accent gentle, her words careful. "I don't want to cause trouble. I was wondering if there is any food left from the kitchen. I have children." The young receptionist froze, unsure what to do, but before she could answer, a sharp voice cut through the air. "What's going on here?" The manager, Victor Hale, strode over with the confidence of a man who believed the world owed him obedience. His suit was perfectly pressed, his expression permanently annoyed, as if kindness were an inconvenience. He looked Amina up and down, his eyes hardening. "You can't be here," he snapped. "This is a 5-star hotel, not a shelter." Amina's cheeks burned, but she didn't back away. "Sir, I'm not begging. If there is any food that would be thrown away." "Thrown away?" He interrupted loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "Do you think this place is a charity? You people always come with stories." Her hands tightened into fists. "My children are hungry," she said quietly. "That's not a story." Victor scoffed. "Security," he barked. "Get her out before she scares the guests." Something inside Amina broke, not loudly, not dramatically, but in a way that left her hollow. She took a step back, then another, tears filling her eyes. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Just a little food. I'll leave. I promise." That was when Victor lost what little patience he had left. He grabbed her arm, not hard at first, but firmly enough to humiliate her. "I said get out," he growled. Now, the room went quiet. Conversation stopped. People watched, some with discomfort, others with curiosity, but no one intervened. Amina winced as his grip tightened, pain shooting up her arm. She tried to pull away, panic rising in her chest. And then the sound came. At first, it was distant, low, rumbling, like thunder rolling through the streets. Then it grew louder. Engines. Many of them. The sound flooded the hotel entrance, vibrating through the glass doors. Heads turned. Victor paused, annoyed more than concerned. Outside, a line of motorcycles pulled up, their chrome reflecting the hotel's golden lights. Leather jackets, patched vests, heavy boots hitting the pavement in unison. One by one, the bikers dismounted, their presence commanding attention without a single word spoken. At the front stood a tall man with silver in his beard and eyes that had seen too much of the world to tolerate cruelty anymore. The revolving doors spun open. The bikers walked in. The air shifted. Conversations died completely now. Victor released Amina's arm slowly, suddenly aware that he was no longer the most powerful person in the room. The silver-bearded man stepped forward, his voice calm but heavy. "Is there a problem here?" Victor straightened his tie. "This woman was trespassing. We're handling it." The man looked at Amina. He noticed the red mark on her arm. He noticed her shaking hands, her exhausted eyes. Then he looked back at Victor, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Handling it how?" he asked. Victor hesitated. She was begging, disrupting guests. She asked for food, the man replied, not raising his voice. That's not a crime. Victor scoffed nervously. And who are you supposed to be? The biker smiled faintly. Someone who doesn't like bullies. Behind him, the other bikers spread out, not aggressively, but deliberately. Their presence alone was enough. Guests watched wide-eyed. Security guards froze, suddenly unsure whose side to be on. The man turned to Amina. Ma'am, he said gently, is that true? You just asked for food. She nodded, tears spilling freely now. For my children. Silence stretched. Then the biker took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. No one should be treated like this, he said. Especially not for loving their kids. He turned back to Victor. You owe her an apology. Victor laughed weakly. This is ridiculous. You can't come in here and tell me how to run my hotel. The biker stepped closer. His voice lowered. Actually, I can. Because this hotel, he said, gesturing around, is hosting a charity gala tonight funded by my organization. And tomorrow morning, the board will hear exactly how their manager treats hungry mothers. Victor's face drained of color. But that's not all, the biker continued. Every guest in this room just watched you grab her arm. Cameras saw it too. One by one, phones lowered as people realized they had been recording. Victor swallowed. I didn't mean. Say that, the biker said. He turned to the head chef, who had been watching from the doorway. Can you prepare meals? Proper meals. Enough for her family. The chef nodded immediately. Of course. Amina stood there, overwhelmed, unsure if this was real. Warm food was packed carefully into containers. Fresh bread, soup, even dessert. Someone pressed a bottle of juice into her hands. The biker knelt slightly so he could look her in the eyes. What are your children's names? He asked. Sammy and Noor, she whispered. They're lucky to have you, he said. And tonight, they're going to eat well. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched the bags. Thank you, she said, again and again, the words barely enough to carry the weight of her gratitude. Before she left, the biker stopped her gently. One more thing, he said. This isn't a one-time kindness. He handed her a card. On it was a foundation name and a phone number. Call tomorrow. We help families get back on their feet. Jobs, housing, school support. She nodded, hope flickering where despair had lived for too long. As Amina walked out of the hotel, the rain had stopped. The city lights reflected on the wet street like stars. Fallen to the ground. For the first time in months, she felt something close to safety. Inside the hotel, Victor was escorted away quietly, his authority gone, his arrogance exposed. The gala resumed, but the mood had changed. People spoke more softly. Some looked ashamed, others inspired. The silver-bearded biker and his group didn't stay long. They never did. As they mounted their bikes, one of the younger riders asked, "Why do we always stop for things like this?" The man smiled as he put on his helmet. Because someday, it could be us. And because kindness, he said as the engines roared back to life, is the only power worth having. Across the city, in a small apartment, Amina placed warm food on the table. Sammy's eyes widened. Noor laughed for the first time in days. As they ate together, Amina watched them closely, her heart full, her promise finally kept. And though the world outside remained harsh and unfair, that night proved something important. Sometimes, all it takes is asking for food, and sometimes, when cruelty shows its face, help arrives on two wheels, exactly when you least expect it.